Welcome back to Real Talk. You just heard It's Now My Time by yours truly, written by one of my former students, Miss Anna Gibson. She's a phenomenal writer, and I just want to give her a shout out in this broadcast.
Yeah.
I am here with Miss, I want to call her evangelist, but Miss Jackie Gales Webb. She's a Peabody Award winning producer. She has her own collection displayed at the Indiana University Archives of African American Music and Culture. And you are in the WERS, I'm not sure if that's WERS or is that WERS?
It's WERS, Emerson College's radio station, Boston, Massachusetts.
And that's your alma mater.
That's my alma mater.
Okay. Let me first thank you for being on this episode, this broadcast with us.
Thank you for having me.
Taking the time out to be with us. This is awesome. This is a privilege. This is one of the reasons why we started this show, was to hopefully get local legends. You are a national legend, but legends like you, and talk about your story and the things that many of us may not be privy to in terms of our knowledge of who you are. So can we start off with, how did you get started in broadcasting?
Growing up in Long Island, New York, I had heroes on the radio. Mm-hmm. There was WWRL, which was the soul radio station. There was a radio station in Long Island, WLIB. Mm-hmm. There was WBLS in New York with Frankie Crocker, who I idolized and I kind of emulate with my music now, because he took the opportunity in New York to not only play R&B, but he played gospel, he played jazz, he played pop. You could tune into Frankie Crocker and you could hear Edwin Hawkins combined with Frank Sinatra, combined with Herbie Hancock, and then some disco.
Right. Wow.
It was a unique flow that he had, and I kind of emulate that in what I do. I try and play traditional, contemporary, inspirational, just the whole gamut, praise and worship into one flowing inspirational theme that hopefully and prayerfully will help people.
Right.
So growing up with all these heroes, I wanted to learn how to do this, and so I went to college at Emerson College in Boston, had a radio program on their radio station, and when I was a junior at Emerson College, I actually started working in commercial radio in Boston, WILD. I did a gospel program, the early morning gospel program. I also, in Boston, worked for a legendary radio station, WBCN, which was album-oriented rock. A long time ago, there was a television show called WKRP in Cincinnati.
Right.
It was based off of WBCN.
Okay.
I was like the Venus flytrap at the time, the black person that played the music at night. Loved it. But I, 2 years after graduating from Emerson, I heard about this wonderful new concept that was starting in Washington, D.C. And the concept was created by a lady named Kathy Liggins.
Okay.
And at the time, there was all this gangster rap pervading the radio, and it was very negative. She wanted something that would give positive messages. Wake up, everybody. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. There's a message in our music, OJ. So she was hired by a group of African American business people here in Washington, D.C. to start WYCB. And I was one of the first people on the air with now Bishop Vashti McKenzie and Luke Hankins and all these great people. So I came to Washington, D.C. to help start WYCB. Stayed there 6 years. I went from midnights to nights to midday, program director, music director, and then program director at WYCB.
Wow. And you were there with some of the other greats. I remember growing up, Don Edwards Miller.
Don Edwards Miller. I was an engineer for the Petey Green show.
Oh my goodness, Petey Green.
Right, Dr. Calvin Rollard.
Yeah.
If it is to be, it's up to me.
And then the Madam Lucille Banks Robinson.
Madam Lucille Banks.
She was something else. I remember.
Miller was one of the finest businesswomen you would ever want to meet.
Wow.
She started the Love Club.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
You became a member of the Love Club, and they were Love Club businesses. So the Love Club members would make sure that they went and patronized the Love Club businesses. She was so smart.
Wow.
So smart. I admired her an awful lot.
Wow. A lot of our people don't know that you also do TV. You also do TV and have done TV. So how'd you get involved in that?
Well, when I went to Emerson College, I actually went to emulate another hero of mine. His name was Rod Serling.
Okay.
He produced The Twilight Zone.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah.
He not only starred in it, but he also wrote it and produced it, and he got a Peabody Award. So when I did my research on where I was going to college, I researched him and found out he had gotten an award, honorary degree from Emerson. That's what led me there.
Wow. Okay.
So I actually went to Emerson College to study television as well as radio.
Wow.
So after 6 years at WYCB, small AM station, I still hadn't really utilized my talents in television that I had been studying all those years. So I went to Channel 9 Television, where I worked with Carol Randolph in Morning Break as one of their producers. I was a producer for Maureen Bunyan. I was a producer for J.C. Hayward.
Wow. What a legend. Legends.
Wonderful time.
Yeah.
And then, let's see, 1988 is when I got married. And, a couple of years after that, children were starting to come.
Right.
And I said, well, I really don't want to be chasing ambulances with, doing the type of work I was doing at Channel 9, even though it was great. I got 6 local Emmy Awards while I was there. Yeah. Loved every second of it. But when you become a parent,
it's different.
You have a different focus.
You gotta balance.
So I went to work for the Smithsonian. And that's where I started producing documentaries, which led to the Peabody Award. I did a radio documentary on the history of black radio, and my host was Lou Rawls. I did a documentary on remembering slavery, where we took the narratives, recordings that were made in the 1940s. The WPA went down south and recorded interviews with former slaves. Because at the time, no one was really talking about slavery. Young people weren't really taught about slavery for many reasons. One being the parents wanted to get away from it. They kind of wanted to forget about it. It was so painful. Now we're in this whole renaissance of we need to know about this.
Right.
But at that time, we didn't. So we kind of put it in people's faces so they could hear the horrors of slavery. And it was a national documentary. It had Lou Gossett Jr., Esther Rolls, and so many, Debbie Allen, so many definitely talented African-American artists reading the narratives of the interviews that weren't recorded. They recorded some, and some they just wrote down, transcribed. So these actors came in, James Earl Jones, and read these wonderful transcripts, and it was a great documentary.
And you produced that documentary?
Yeah.
Where can we see that documentary now?
It's radio. It's radio.
It's all radio.
It's all radio.
Where
it's
can
with
we
the
hear
Smithsonian.
It? They have it.
They have it. And during this period, during the Smithsonian, no, I'm sorry, I skipped something.
Go ahead.
While I was still at Channel 9 Television, WHUR, Howard University's radio station,
Here we go.
Patrick Ellis had several successful years as the Sunday morning gospel.
Right.
It was so successful that they wanted to extend it. So it was either Ellis Terry or Bobby Bennett, I think it was Ellis Terry at the time, remembered me from WYCB and came to me and asked me if I wanted to do an extension of the gospel that would go into the afternoon. And I, who would say no? Right. So that's when that started. And I've been at WHUR since 1990.
Isn't that something?
Right.
I vaguely remember, when that afternoon program started, but I grew up with Patrick Ellis and hearing Change and all those. He would play the same thing. He would he had a small rotation. He would play, and he knew we loved it every week.
It became a tradition.
Yeah, and you came along and just extended that, and your career at WHUR is just phenomenal. That's where a lot of us know you, is from WHUR.
And what's good about the way things are, pray for me, that I do have the opportunity to curate my own music.
Right.
Meaning that I can play a Phillip Carter.
Right.
That I can play Patrick Lundy and the Ministers of Music. I can play local artists, and and add them to my playlist. And I make sure I do that because, as you know, nowadays there are the conglomerates,
Sure.
radio stations where there might be one person in one city who will program for several different other cities, and you really don't get to hear that local.
Right.
And I just remember, Richard Smallwood coming into WICB with his first record and how important that was to get that exposure.
Right. Well, we thank you for it. Can you recall a most interesting interview you had with an artist that you thought was just, I guess, unique in a way? Is there anybody that came in the studio that was really unique to you?
Yes, several. This one always stands out. Kirk Franklin came in and took it over. He came in with his crew. I forgot who was singing with him then, the Family or the New Nation, whatever it was. But it was him, about 5 people. They came in, and he just took over. He started them singing while I was playing the song. So I was going in and out of them singing and the song.
Wow.
He was conducting, and he was just I just appreciate him so much. And I know the struggle that he went through when he first came out, and people saying, that's not gospel. But I remember going to see him for the first time. I forgot what venue it was, whether it was Constitution Hall or the Warner Theater, whatever. And at the end, all these young people, young people, came up and were crying and giving their life to Christ.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
I remember him first coming to Riverdale Baptist Church in Maryland. That's where he came. He came with his whole crew. Came from the back. It was a great, exciting time. When he came out in 1990, he was a part of that whole crew. Hezekiah Walker was just getting popular. John P. Key, and Kirk Franklin just took the world by storm. 2 things: advice for people, for young people who are just coming out of school in communications, who are trying to find their niche or trying to find their way in communications. What advice would you give to them right now?
Don't worry too much about what the platform is. Worry about what your content is. Become proficient in something. Have a story to tell. This is a storytelling time. If you have a story to tell or something to offer as far as your unique personality, your experiences, your writing, concentrate on that, because you could be on the internet, you could be on the radio, you could be on television. Just don't worry about the platform. Just really focus in on that content, what it is that you are offering to the public and how it will benefit them. You could do a podcast. There's podcasting now, and that's the latest thing, but there might be something else. Very soon, like tomorrow.
It can happen just like that.
Right.
What about to us indie artists, especially those of us who are local, who are still navigating our way? And of course, there are a lot of young up and coming, I call them millennials, which is that 1990 to 99 generation. What advice do you have for them right now in trying to navigate their way through this ever-changing gospel music industry?
Pay attention to the platforms. Pay attention to the new technologies. There are many young artists now who are not really seeking labels. They are studying, they're getting their music on like Spotify or some of those platforms, because with those platforms you can actually track who is streaming your music and where. So some artists, they use Spotify to say, oh, a lot of people are streaming my music in Philadelphia. I need to go there for a concert, Labels are still good. RCA Inspiration and E1 and Ty Scott and all the other great labels do wonderful things for their artists. But until you get there, take advantage of the new technology.
What does the future hold for you? Is there anything you haven't done yet? Bucket list things?
Yes. I have a Peabody Award, I have Emmy Awards, I won a Tony and an Oscar.
Come on now.
Why stop here?
Why?
No, it's interesting that you asked that, because I am in this prayerful state right now. I have many talents. I can do many things. I want to be in God's will. Everything I do, I want it to be a benefit to God's people.
Absolutely.
I've been on HUR for 28 years now. I work with the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, bringing great programming to the public to actually help people. And so that's what I want to do. I don't know exactly what it is. There's something else that God wants me to do. So pray for me as I try. And my guess is and my method is just do the best I can and try and do it with excellence.
Amen.
And God will direct me in the path that will stay in His will for my life.
Right.
So that's what I'm praying for.
Last, you have an upcoming show in Philadelphia or something you were talking about before this show aired.
I don't have an air date yet,
Okay.
but WXPN in Philadelphia had me to host a program that will launch this national documentary they're doing on public radio called Gospel Roots of Rock and Roll.
Okay.
And it's an excellent documentary. And it explores how gospel music has been the platform for many rock and roll songs.
Always, yes.
And so what they had me do was to compare and show how certain rock and roll artists have taken from Sister Rosetta Tharpe, and also certain gospel artists who have taken from rock and roll or R&B, such as, Kirk Franklin's Stomp is directly from One Nation Under a Groove.
Right. That's right.
Parliament, Funkadelic. So it should be interesting, but I don't have a date yet. But hopefully and prayerfully you will hear great things coming from Jackie Gales Webb. And one last thing before we go that I want to make clear, that my work at WHUR has been a blessing to me.
Absolutely.
And it is a blessing because it allows me to be a vessel for God. I will never forget, a while ago, a lady came up to me and she was just crying because she was so grateful for hearing this song that I played. It helped her through a particular time in her life. And I know that it wasn't me, it was God. And so I was grateful that God allowed me to be a vessel and a help to this woman
Praise
at
God.
that time. So I consider what I do on HUR ministry.
Right. I don't want this show to be over without you talking about your daughters.
My daughters?
Your daughters. That's
My
right.
lovely daughters?
Yes.
Joanna Webb is an artist. She's about 25 now, and she's a tremendously talented anime and comic book artist.
Wow.
Diana Webb, my Fulbright scholar. She speaks fluent Spanish.
Come on now.
And I see great things ahead for her.
Right.
And I want to thank each and every one of you that come up to me and say, "Oh, I remember your husband, and I remember when your daughters were born." That means an awful lot. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I do want to mention that you are a proud member of the Metropolitan Baptist Church. You talk about that all the time.
Well, they want to see me more.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, any pastor will come to his member and say, "I haven't seen you in a while."
You got work to do.
Now, I understand you have a fabulous pastor coming up on your program.
Oh
pretty
yeah,
soon.
he's coming.
Henry Davis.
He's coming soon. He's coming soon. But
Yeah. But I have to shout out to Pastor Maurice Watson.
That's right.
And my pastor emeritus, Dr. H. Beecher Hicks,
who is doing well.
Who
was doing well.
Yes.
In fact, I think it was the day he got out the hospital, he went and did a funeral at Alfred Street. But it was amazing.
Wow, we have some tremendous churches in our
tremendous
area,
churches and a tremendous legacy of pastors.
And also, I always have to mention in my history Pastor Jerome Bell, who has been my friend and colleague all these years through YCB and the many things that he has done. He is very talented young man.
He is. He's getting ready to record this fall too. He's doing his own recording in October. Yeah. I'm going to help him out, whatever he needs.
Good.
But thank you so much for being on this show. This was a real pleasure.
Yes, it was.
This was on my bucket list, so I can check mark this. Interviewed a legendary Jackie Gales Webb.
Thank you.
God bless you. We're getting ready to go to a commercial for a jazz concert on June the 11th, and we're going to talk about the IGAA. Up next, Pastor Henry P. Davis III. Enjoy.
For more information on how to become a guest on Real Talk with Philip Carter, or for general inquiries, please email us at realtalkwithphilipcarter@yahoo.com. Tune in next Monday for another edition of Real Talk with Philip Carter.